Greetings and welcome to Jeremiah School Vlogucation. This video does not provide medical advice, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician and/or qualified healthcare provider.
Wendy Parsley with Jeremiah School Vlogucation, coming to you today to talk about things that you're feeding your children that you didn't even know about. Because if you knew, you probably wouldn't do it. And I'm talking about additives that are in your food. There are over 10,000 of them according to the FDA website. And some of them are okay. Some of them are benign. Things like rosemary extract, that's okay. But a lot of them are on the label. They're those very long chemical names. Nobody knows what they are, so we just kind of brush over them and ignore it because we don't know what they are. And who wants to stand in the grocery store with your iPhone looking that up for 20 minutes? So we're eating them, and a lot of them have been proven to be toxic. A lot of them are banned in other countries. They caused a host of health problems. Those we would be worried about. But the other thing we're seeing with our kids is neurological issues like the ADHD, the behaviors, all of this. Sometimes you even notice when your kids eat that stuff that they have a reaction to it. And perhaps it's not the food necessarily, but the additive that's in the food. And it takes very small amounts of these things to cause a reaction. A lot of them the FDA has said are safe, and they've believed that they were safe for 50 years or more, but then they find out, oh, this causes cancer. Oh, this causes neurological impairment. So why wait? Why wait for them to find out and tell you, by the way, this is terrible after you've eaten it your whole entire life? Why not just avoid those things to begin with? And that's called clean eating. Also, there are studies that have been done and articles that have been published that certain chemical additives exacerbate or make worse the symptoms of ADHD. So we're seeing terrible behavior in our kids. Some of them are diagnosed, some of them are undiagnosed. But in other countries, they've banned these things because they've made the link. But here, apparently, if there's money to be made, then, wow, we don't want to interfere with that. The USDA, back in the 1970s, tried to have nitrites taken out of the meat because they know that in the body it bonds with amines, which forms nitrous amines, which is carcinogenic. So in the body, it becomes a cancer-causing agent. But the manufacturers said, hey, we can't preserve this food any other way, and it's going to be terrible and grow bacteria. And they went to the government, who backed them up. And now, even though it causes cancer, it's allowed in food. Other countries don't allow this. By the way, meats that are not organic, grass-fed are, when you look at them on the shelf, they look all bright red and everything in the package. That's because of the nitrites that they add to the meat. Good to know. You can check all of this out on the FDA website. It will give you a huge list of food additives, and it tells you which ones are under review, what health risks they think they cause, and that is everything from BHA to nitrates to additives in plastics to ionizing radiation that they can do on your food to preserve it. So that's good to know. A lot of these, when you look at them, you'll notice GRAS in all caps next to it. That stands for generally recognized as safe. Seriously, generally recognized as safe. Wow. Your carrots don't come from the grocery store with a label that says generally recognized as safe. Just saying. Also, these additives, if you have a single ingredient like raw meat, raw vegetables, raw fruits, a single ingredient raw food, they are allowed to add an additive to it and not include it on the label. So your meats, your vegetables and fruits that are cut up in those little packages, salad bars, things like that, they can add chemical preservatives to that or excitotoxins to that, and nobody has to tell you that it's in there. Good to know. Chemicals also that are used during the processing of the food, maybe in the equipment, are not required to be put on the label, even though they know that there are amounts of them in the food and they have to be approved by the FDA to be generally recognized as safe. That's not on the label either. Packaging materials that have, for instance, sorbitol in them or any other additives in them that leaches into the food while it's in the package is also required to be approved by the FDA, but does not have to be on your label. Interesting things that I did not know about food preservatives, and we read labels and we study things and we make it our business because our kid reacts to just everything. Amoxicillin or penicillin can be added to uncooked edible tissues of cattle and can also be put in your milk. Nice. Chlorine is allowed in cereal flours, and that's not just cereals, but any kind of grain product that's allowed in there. That's the same thing that you would use to kill bacteria in a giant swimming pool. Progesterone can be implanted into lambs and steers. Leaches into the meat, also not required to be on your packaging label. Nystatin is commonly found in chicken eggs because it's fed to the chickens to keep them from getting sick when they're cooped up in those giant barns all packed in tiny little cages. So that is showing up in the eggs also. You're not required to be told that. And sorbitol and other things in the packaging is typically found in paperboard, paper packaging, but there's stuff in the plastics too. So, avoiding the foods that have that stuff on the label, you are perhaps still getting some, but maybe not as much. In part 2 of this video, I'm going to cover the worst of the worst. Out of the 10,000 or so, the worst of the worst, the ones that cause the biggest health issues, the ones that are proven, the ones that are in most of your things that you're eating. I will be covering details about those, what they're in, what they do to the body, how they're on the label, because we want to hide that. We don't want people to catch on. That would be terrible. So in order to get more information about this, watch part 2 and let this soak in for a minute. Really, really hope that you would subscribe. Our goal and our dream of this ministry is to get this information out to everyone, but definitely people who are struggling with raising kids like ours, because it's really the hardest thing you do. We're with you.